You wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Again. Not because of a nightmare, not because of a sound, but because your body has learned something terrible. Your body knows that at 2 o'clock in the morning, a stranger is coming. Every single night, this man shows up in the darkness outside your home. And every single time you try to confront him, every single time you work up the courage to open that door and face him, he vanishes, like he was never there at all. But on the sixth night, something changes. You open that door and he doesn't run. He's standing there, 1 foot away, staring directly at you with eyes so intense, so inhuman, that for a moment you forget how to breathe. And you realize he's been waiting for you to do exactly this. My name is Elias, and I'm about to tell you 3 stories that I've never fully shared before. 3 encounters that I still can't explain. 3 times when I made split-second decisions that probably saved my life. If you value your safety, if you want to understand the warning signs that most people miss, if you want to know what to do when something deeply wrong is happening right under your nose, you need to hear what happened to me. I just moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood. You know the type. Tree-lined streets, neatly manicured lawns, the kind of place where neighbors don't really interact. They nod. They wave from their cars. But nobody actually talks to anybody else. I'd visited the area a few times before committing to the move. I'd walked around on a couple of different days. I'd driven through the neighborhood and looked at the houses, but I didn't really know it. Not in the way you need to know a place before you move your entire life there. What I noticed most was how quiet everything was. Not peaceful quiet. Not the kind of quiet you get in a small town where everybody's just minding their business. This was a different kind of quiet. Cold, detached, like the neighborhood itself was keeping something private, keeping people at a distance. On the second day after moving in, I was drowning in boxes, cardboard everywhere. My new job hadn't started yet, so I had nothing but time and stress. The snow was falling outside, and honestly, the thought of unpacking everything felt overwhelming. I decided to go to bed early, around 8 o'clock in the evening, just to escape the chaos for a while. I thought sleep would be easy. I was wrong. 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, but I wasn't jolted awake by a nightmare or a loud noise. I just opened my eyes, and immediately I knew something was off. The darkness felt different. The silence felt wrong. That's when I heard it. Scrape. Thump. A rhythmic, muffled sound, repeated over and over. My mind was foggy. I was still half asleep, trying to figure out what I was hearing. What was that noise? Where was it coming from? I got out of bed and walked to the window. My eyes were still adjusting to the darkness. What I saw made me freeze completely. There was a man in my driveway, shoveling snow at 2 o'clock in the morning. In the darkness, I couldn't see his face, just a silhouette in dark winter clothing. But his movements were clear. He was moving methodically back and forth across my driveway, scraping up lines of snow and tossing them off to the side. Scrape. Thump. Scrape. Thump. I stood there watching him for 3 minutes, maybe 4. And the longer I watched, the more uncomfortable I felt. This wasn't a neighborly gesture. This wasn't someone trying to be kind. This was something else entirely. Who shovels someone's driveway at 2 in the morning without ever introducing themselves? Without knocking on the door? Without even making it known that they're there? The answer was someone with an agenda. I went downstairs, threw on a jacket and shoes, and opened the front door to confront him. He was gone, completely vanished, and he'd left his work unfinished. The driveway was still half covered in snow. He'd stopped midway through shoveling a section. I looked around the neighborhood. Every house was dark. Every window was black. Every driveway remained covered in snow. Not a single other person had their walkway cleared. Just mine. I went back inside, locked the door, and went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I lay there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, wondering who that man was and why he was in my driveway. The next night, I stayed up later than usual. I kept thinking about that man. If he came back, I told myself, I'd be ready, I'd be awake, I'd be prepared to talk to him, to get some answers. Around 11 o'clock in the evening, I finally went to bed. But I didn't sleep deeply. Part of me was waiting. Part of me was anticipating. 2 o'clock came. That same sound, that familiar, unsettling scrape and thump. The sound that was becoming burned into my memory. I ran to the window. It was him, the same man, the same dark clothing, the same methodical movements, shoveling my driveway like he was on some kind of compulsion. Like his body was programmed to do this thing, night after night. This time, I didn't hesitate. I threw on my coat and boots and burst through the front door. But he wasn't there. The driveway was empty. I looked in every direction, nothing, no one, just darkness and the cold wind against my face and snow crunching under my feet. I waited outside for 15 minutes, my heart pounding, my breath visible in the frozen air. He didn't return. This went on for nights. Multiple nights. Night after night, the same pattern repeated itself. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd hear that sound. Every time I looked out the window, there he was, slowly shoveling my driveway like some kind of ghost, like some kind of apparition that only existed in the darkness. And every time I went downstairs to confront him, every time I opened that front door and stepped outside, he was gone, vanished into the night like he was never there at all, stopped trying to catch him. What was the point? Every attempt ended the same way. So instead, I just watched. I'd stare out the window and observe him as he worked. And the more I watched him, the more wrong it felt. There was something deeply disturbing about the way he moved, methodical, lifeless, like he was operating on autopilot, like some part of his mind had disconnected from his body. He never looked up. He never seemed to see anything. He just worked. Over and over, the same motion, the same rhythm. Scrape, thump, scrape, thump. By the 6th night, I was exhausted, sleep-deprived, running on fumes and adrenaline. But when I heard that familiar scraping sound, I still got up. I still went to the window. Part of me was hoping that maybe tonight would be different. Maybe tonight I'd finally get some answers. But the sound stopped before I even got to the window. 1 second. That's all the time that passed between hearing him stop and me reaching the glass. 1 second, which meant it was physically impossible for him to have run away. Not enough time, not humanly possible. I looked out into the darkness. The driveway was completely shoveled now, clean, perfect. But he wasn't there. But I knew he was still out there, somewhere in that darkness, watching, waiting, observing me. I was tired. I was frustrated. And honestly, I was terrified. But something inside me snapped. I couldn't take this anymore. I couldn't spend another night wondering. I couldn't live with this uncertainty. I ran downstairs, pulled on my coat, and threw open the front door. I almost fell backward. He was standing on my porch, 1 foot away from the door, maybe less. The man was tall, gaunt, skeletal almost. He had thick, scraggly facial hair and shoulder-length, wet black hair plastered to his face like he'd been out in the snow the entire time. His eyes, they stared directly at me with an intensity I'd never seen before. They were heavy, hollow, like something wasn't quite human behind those eyes. The shovel hung at his side. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. For several seconds, we just stood there, staring at each other, and he didn't move either. Didn't speak. Didn't blink. He just stood there on my porch, watching me, studying me, like he was trying to figure something out. My voice finally came. Shaky. Weak. What are you doing? His eyes tensed, like they grew heavier. And then without a word, without any explanation, he turned and walked off the porch. I watched him descend into my driveway, then to the street, and then down the road until he disappeared completely into the night. I closed the door and locked it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the deadbolt. I thought about calling the cops. I really did. But what would I say? A man is shoveling my driveway for free at 2 a.m? They'd laugh at me. He hadn't done anything illegal. He hadn't threatened me. He'd just been there. So I went back to bed and he never came back. The next day, it didn't snow. The streets were quiet. I unpacked boxes and tried to convince myself it was over. Maybe he'd just move on. Maybe he'd found whatever it was he was looking for. That night, I went to bed at a normal hour. And when I woke at 2 a.m, there were no sounds, just silence. But my body had become conditioned to that hour, to that fear. I lay there listening to the quiet for several minutes, my heart still racing from the anticipation of what I thought was coming. Then I heard it, a thump, quiet, small, from downstairs. My entire body went rigid. I listened. Nothing else. Just that one sound. It could have been the house settling. It probably was. But I had to check. I couldn't sleep without knowing. I got up and walked downstairs. My eyes were locked on the front door as I made my way through the hallway. I was looking so hard at that door that I almost missed it. Something was in my living room. I slowly turned my head, and that's when I saw him. The man was standing in the middle of my living room, his back to me, holding the shovel, completely motionless in the pitch-black darkness, standing there like a statue, like he was waiting for something. I didn't think. I just ran. Back upstairs, into my bedroom. I locked the door and called 911. The police arrived in 5 minutes. They found the back door open, no sign of the man, no sign of anyone. I gave them a detailed description. They filed a report. But there was no investigation, no follow-up, nothing, just a closed case filed away. I never saw him again. But I moved away 3 months later. And to this day, I don't know who he was or what he wanted. Last autumn, I finally made a dream come true. I moved to a small cabin deep in the woods, remote, isolated, affordable. I'd gotten a remote job, and honestly, I just wanted to disappear. I wanted to get away from people, from neighborhoods, from the feeling of being watched. So I sold everything I didn't need. I packed the essentials, and I drove to my new life. The cabin was rustic but livable. The previous owner had done renovations. He'd brought it into the modern age. It was perfect for what I needed. On the day I moved in, around sunset, I got a visitor. A man introduced himself as Chandler. He was 40-ish, average-looking, extremely friendly. Over-the-top friendly, actually, but it didn't seem fake. He said he lived in a neighboring cabin down one of the trails. We chatted for about 15 minutes, and then he asked to see inside. I agreed, because the cabin was mostly empty and he seemed harmless enough. The tour took 5 minutes. It's a small place. But after the tour, he sat down on my couch, and he kept talking. I was standing by the door, and I realized I had to actually tell him it was getting late, that he should go home. He apologized, thanked me, and left with a smile. He didn't seem to have a car. He just walked into the dark woods. I was a little weirded out, but I told myself I was being paranoid. He was just a friendly neighbor, that's all. I built a fire in the fireplace and tried to relax. The quiet was incredible, just the crackling of the flames and nothing else. Eventually, I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up a couple of hours later. The fire was still going. The cabin was dark except for the glow of the flames. I got up, stretched, and went to the kitchen for some water. That's when I heard it, shuffling, outside, right by the front door. I stopped, listened. 30 seconds of silence passed, then a minute. I decided to check it out. I went to the door and pushed aside the small curtains that covered the window. Chandler was standing right there on my porch. I jumped back. He was visibly startled when he saw me, too. He laughed it off and said he was just about to knock. Said he wanted to invite me to a campfire he was having at his cabin. It was almost 9 o'clock at night, and I'd heard him shuffling around out there for a full minute before I went to the door. He definitely wasn't just about to knock. He'd been standing out there, waiting, listening, watching. I asked him where his cabin was. He pointed at a dark trail that disappeared into the black woods. Just a mile down there, he said. A mile through by pitch-black forest, alone, with a man I'd just met hours earlier. I told him no thanks. I just wanted to settle in, preferably alone. He said he understood, but then he looked past me at the fireplace. Why don't we just hang around here then? You've already got a fire going. Something shifted in my chest. A spike of pure fear. A warning bell going off in my head. I said no in the firmest voice I could manage. I closed the curtain. I could see his outline through the fabric. He stood there for a long time. Longer than was normal. Finally, he walked off the porch. I waited for him to disappear, then I went to the window to make sure. I watched him walk into the woods until the darkness swallowed him completely. My heart was pounding. I could feel it in my throat. I went back to the kitchen and just stood there with my glass of water, trying to process what had just happened. The way he'd pushed to come inside. The way he'd suggested we just hang out by my fire. The isolation, the dark. The fact that I had no way to verify where he actually lived. I was standing there when I heard it. A loud crack that echoed through the entire forest. A gunshot. It came from the direction Chandler had walked, from that dark trail. My first instinct was to run outside and look, but I stayed put. I was confused, scared. What was happening out there? Who was shooting at whom? Then I heard footsteps, running, and then fast, getting closer. A man burst out of the forest, sprinting toward my cabin, screaming for help. It was Chandler. He reached my door within seconds, and I was paralyzed with fear. He ran right past me, into my cabin, into my home. "I've been shot," he yelled, holding his side. His shirt was pulled up, and there, clear as day, I saw the silver handle of a gun tucked into his waistband. The gun, he said, he'd just been shot by. Everything clicked. Every instinct screamed danger. I grabbed my car keys and ran. "Wait! Please. He called after me, but I didn't stop. I drove to the police station and I called them from the road. While I was giving my statement, a different officer went to my cabin. They found Chandler sitting in my living room, just sitting there, waiting. For me. They arrested him. What they discovered was worse than anything I could have imagined. He had no cabin, no address, no real name. They couldn't even identify him. The gun in his waistband was loaded with 5 bullets. 1 bullet was missing. He'd staged that entire scenario, the gunshot, the running, the panic, all of it. He was trying to get into my cabin, to get me alone with him. If I'd believed his story, if I'd let him stay, if I'd gone with him into those woods, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd been living in this house for 2 weeks. I moved for work, and the town was affordable but not fancy. The neighbors seemed decent, just regular people trying to get by. One night after work, I walked through the front door and was hit by a smell. Rancid, putrid, absolutely nauseating. I had no idea what it was. I checked the entire house, the kitchen, the bathroom, the bedrooms, nothing. After a few hours, it faded. I forgot about it until the next day when I came home from work and smelled it again. This time, I did a thorough search. Every room, every corner, every closet. I found nothing. But I did find something strange. The lock on my back door, a sliding glass door, was unlocked. The switch was flipped up. I never left that door open. I checked all my locks every night before bed. It was a habit, a ritual. I hadn't opened that door since I'd moved in. Someone had unlocked it. I checked the backyard, fenced on the sides, open to the woods in the back. Nothing was disturbed, nothing was stolen. I locked that door, triple-checked it, and tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe I'd forgotten I opened it. Maybe it had been like that when I moved in. But deep down, I knew better. That night I watched television and told myself something specific. If anything else happened, I would call the police immediately. No hesitation, no second guessing. I went to bed a few hours later. Around 2 a.m, something woke me. I was groggy, not suddenly awake, but gradually roused from sleep by a sound, a loud scratching, like machinery, buzzing. Then it stopped. I opened my eyes and the sound was gone. But another sound took its place. Drip, 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 water. From the kitchen sink, hitting the metal basin over and over again. I must have left the faucet on. I dragged myself out of bed and walked downstairs. The house was silent except for that constant dripping. As I got closer to the kitchen, though, the smell hit me. That rancid smell. Stronger than before. So strong it made my eyes water. It was strong enough to wake me up completely, to clear the fog from my head. Turned off the faucet, and that's when I saw it. Something was in the sink. In the darkness, I couldn't tell what it was. It was torn up, disfigured, mangled. And it smelled like death. Pure death. Someone had been trying to stuff it down the drain. But they'd stopped midway through. It was jammed in there, half in, half out. That's when I realized someone was in my house, right now, somewhere inside my home. My eyes went to the back door. Even in the darkness, I could see it. The latch was unlocked. Everything crystallized in that moment. The smell, the unlocked door, the scratching sound, this thing in the sink. Someone had broken into my home. Someone was doing something with this object in my sink. And when I woke up, they hid. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't want them to know I was looking for them. I went back upstairs as quietly as I could, keeping my breathing shallow, My heart was hammering so hard, I thought it would burst out of my chest. I made it to the upper hallway. That's when I heard them. Heavy footsteps, loud, thumping across the bottom floor. They ran into the kitchen. I froze. I heard them struggling with something, grunting, struggling. Then the sound of the garbage disposal turning on, the drain grinding away, pulverizing whatever was stuck in there. Then silence. I could hear breathing, heavy breathing, deep breaths. From the kitchen below, the footsteps moved to another room. I heard the crinkle of plastic, a garbage bag. Then they came back to the kitchen. The back door slid open. It shut. Silence. I ran to my bedroom, locked the door, and called 911. The police arrived within minutes. They found my house empty. But what they found in the sink, the man had been shoving animal carcasses down the drain. A large animal, a deer, they said, cut into chunks, which meant he'd broken in multiple times, multiple days, gradually disposing of this thing piece by piece. The question was why? Why my house? Why this repeated disposal of remains? Why my sink? Why my home? The police didn't know. They offered theories. Maybe he thought my house was empty. Maybe he wanted to drive me away with the smell. Maybe he was covering something up. Or maybe he was testing me. It's been years now, and I've moved to a different house, but sometimes, late at night, I wake up convinced I can smell it. That rancid smell, that smell of death. And I just know that I was lucky to wake up when I did. My name is Elias, and these 3 encounters changed me forever. 3 times when I came face to face with something I couldn't explain. 3 times when I made choices that probably saved my life. The man with the shovel, Chandler in the woods. The person dumping animal remains in my sink. What did they want? What were they planning? I'll never know. And that's what haunts me the most. If you've experienced something similar, if you've had that gut feeling that something is wrong, comment below. I want to hear your story. I want to know that I'm not alone in this. And if you found yourself looking over your shoulder, checking your locks, maybe sleeping with one eye open after hearing these stories, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe to Silent Fear. Because sometimes the most dangerous things are the ones closest to home. The things that happen when everyone else is asleep. The things that defy explanation. I'm Elias, and I'll see you next time. Stay safe out there.